I would like to speak and nominate, or actually maybe have a conversation and then nominate. So, you know how usually boards, they tend to kind of, we all take our roles and we kind of just sit in those roles for a little bit. So I was talking to Kevin, who's vice chair, and asked if he would be willing to take chair. I think it's always good for a board and to kind of mix it up and kind of get different styles going. Because, like, sometimes we just do the role that we always do. So Kevin said that he would be interested in doing that. But I also haven't asked anybody else if they would also be willing to put their name in the hat. So if there aren't any others, I would nominate Kevin, but I'm willing to hear what you all have. Oh, and I should say Kevin's not here, but I asked him and he would accept the nomination if I in fact nominated him.
Okay. So I hear one nomination for Kevin Blaney for board chair. Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of Kevin Blaney as board chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, wait a minute.
Aye.
Did that wrong again. I have to do it by roll. Sorry. Polly?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Who's my other board member on here?
Mort.
Oh, there you are, Mort.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So I can't actually turn it over. I'm gonna have to do one more because Kevin's not here. So next up on the board election is vice chair. So are there any nominations for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Polly.
Feels like a nice step down.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a vote by roll. Mort.
Aye.
Amy.
Aye.
Rick.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
Polly.
I vote, yeah, aye.
Okay. All right, so congratulations, Polly, you have been elected vice chair. And as the vice chair, you can take it away from here with board reorganization.
Okay. So let's see. Next on the list is clerk. Do I have any nominations for clerk?
Currently, your clerk is who?
Amy.
Amy.
Okay.
Amy, are you taxed?
Yes, so taxed.
Um,
I nominate Amy.
Okay, I have a nomination of Amy. Let's take a roll. Sarah.
Aye.
Rick.
Aye.
Mort.
Aye.
Amy.
Aye.
And I am an aye. We didn't even ask her if she accepted the nomination. I guess that's how we roll.
She has no choice.
So next on our list is policy committee. There we need 2 members. Oh, we have 2 members, I think, in the past, and we have 1. Oh no, we have had 2.
2 since we merged.
Yeah. Since we merged, that's correct. I don't mind continuing on the policy committee if there wants to be. And Amy, you were the other person, that's right, on the policy committee. So I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I don't mind continuing on it.
Okay.
Unless someone wants it, because certainly don't let me stop you.
I do want to say though, I would be super, my decision would be really good if we could get those policies more than a day in advance. Just have to say that. But
I promise you, post-COVID, you're going to get more time with policy. It's
Okay.
the best you could do right now.
okay, point taken. So I would accept a nomination.
I nominate Polly.
And
Who else was the other one on it? Amy?
Amy, yeah.
Amy, you still willing to do it, or
Yeah, that's fine.
I will nominate Polly and Amy.
So I have a nomination. I'll take a roll. Sarah,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Mort,
Aye.
and Rick.
Aye.
Okay, so next is SU board. So we need 3 members for the SU board.
Is the chair an automatic member of that board or no?
Not automatic. It's certainly been done that way in the past.
Okay. Did anybody ask Kevin about it by chance?
That I did not speak to him about. Because in the past it was Kevin, myself, and you, Rick. So how do we proceed on that one? Unless you or Amy wanted to join another board.
Or Sarah? We got
I'm good.
Sarah. We have
You're good.
Sarah.
Oh yeah, and Sarah. Oh, that's right. And Sarah, if you wanted to be on the SU, another meeting to your week.
Just an hour a month.
That's what I told Amy.
I think if you ended up nominating Kevin and he didn't want it, you would just have to renominate someone. And
Okay. Then we can revisit it. Okay, then I say we do. He's in the past been on that board, so I'm going to assume that he wants to continue that, but we'll revisit it if not. So I would accept. So I would accept a nomination for the 3 of us.
I'll nominate the 3 of you for the SU board. Kevin, Rick, and Polly.
Okay. So Mort,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
I'm an I, Amy,
Aye.
and Rick.
Aye.
Okay, so next is negotiations. We need 2 members.
It was Rick
I
and Wendy.
cannot. Right, Rick and Wendy. I can't be on. Oh, that was the SU. Yeah, see, historically it was Rick. Oh no, you said Rick and Wendy.
So I think where Polly's going is if there's 2 separate negotiations. Usually it's for teachers and for support staff. So if you have a conflict of interest and your spouse happens to be a teacher, you really shouldn't be on that negotiation process. Or if your spouse is a support staff member, what we've done in the past is we've split. So if we've had one spouse with a support staff member, they've represented teacher negotiations. And then if another staff member had someone who was a teacher, they've just done support staff. So it doesn't have to be one person that doesn't have the conflict. It could be split.
Or Sarah, are you interested? Or Amy or anybody else?
I'd be interested.
Okay, great. So, and Rick, do you want to continue on the negotiations?
I was hoping we had other volunteers.
I know, but you're so good at it.
I can do it. Mort, you
Okay.
interested?
It's all yours, Rick.
Thanks.
So I would entertain a motion to for Sarah and Rick to represent the negotiations.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion. So Mort,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
and Sarah,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, next we have, what is regular, oh, the regular board meeting schedule. Do we want to continue with this time and day of the week?
So second Tuesday at 5:30 is what you have now. We adjusted the SU meeting schedule partway through this year, so those double meeting nights weren't happening anymore. And I think that that probably has felt better for board members. So if you go the week before, it'll be NMB, which is fine. It doesn't conflict with any of you. The week after will be SU.
I personally like this.
Yeah, I've arranged my schedule
Yes.
so this works.
Anybody else have a conflict or a different idea?
Wednesdays, same time would be better, but I can make this work. That's no problem.
I like this time.
Okay, let's
Okay.
just go with this time then. That's fine.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to keep the board meetings as they are.
I'll make that motion.
Perfect. I have a motion. Sarah,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
and Mort.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, so next we have meeting posting locations. We have to designate what our standard meeting posting places are.
What we're asking is, are you feeling a need to change any of your standard posting locations, or are they working out pretty well?
I don't think so. Anybody else? Anybody hearing anything from the community that they're hard to find or anything like that?
Where are they currently posted? Just to,
So town clerk's, post office, website. Morgan, what am I missing?
Maybe one more than I would have guessed.
I believe that's where they are.
And we do put them up at, I believe we put them in the
Okay.
schools as well.
yeah, seems like it gets all environments.
And I also believe it's, yes, like you said, school website on the calendar, it's on there, I believe. So I'd entertain a motion to keep our notification protocols the same.
I'll make that
it.
motion.
Perfect. Got it from Mort. So I have, let's take a roll. Amy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
and Mort.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay. So next is Robert's rules for small boards. So what this is, if you remember, and Sarah, normally Robert's rules, you need a motion and a second, and then the chair typically doesn't vote. They just do a tiebreaker. But small rules for small boards means that you just need a motion, you don't need a second, and the chair can vote. So that's the difference. And we have in the past adopted rules for small boards just because we are such a small board. And sometimes we like the chair to vote as well. So I would entertain a motion to either continue or change.
Make the motion to continue.
Okay. So I have a motion to continue. Mort,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I'm an aye.
Before you move on, Polly, there's one thing that if we had been in person tonight, we would have done, and that would have been a review of the Vermont School Boards Association Code of Ethics. So I'd like to put that in front of board members every year during the organizational meeting, just as a reminder of the things you need to keep in mind as you, work as a school board member. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to send out 2 copies to each of you, and one is for you to keep, and we'll send you an envelope to send it back to us. If you could sign off on one and send it back. So look for that to come in your mailbox. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Perfect. So next, let's see. Oh, the consent agenda. And I do want to specify that the last meeting, I had questioned about whether the policies that were in front of us were second reads. I thought they were, but in fact, Lynn corrected me and they were first reads. So that's why tonight's consent agenda says that these policies are actually second reads. So that was my mistake.
I do think that you had read them once already at the SU board meeting.
Right.
You thought that.
And my worlds were getting fuzzy. So I had read them, but maybe you hadn't. So I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda, or if you would like to discuss anything within that consent agenda.
I got a couple of discussion things.
Okay.
The first is the school district choice policy. And so I thought we brought this up once before where the wording in it isn't right. I think it's parents, guardians, elementary school choice. I think it's supposed to be within the district, Enosburg-Richford, not, or maybe it's with the district. Maybe that is right, but on the first policy.
Okay, I didn't open all of them. It's going to take
Sorry.
me just a second.
Policies part 1.
Okay. You're on the policy part, not the procedure.
Yeah. So the one where it says, to begin school year 21-22. Is that supposed to say within the district or with the district?
Within.
Okay. Good catch.
And I gotta admit, my eyes kind of gloss over on some of these policies before I get there. But my next question is on the records. And I think that the records policy is about where they're being kept. Do we have to disclose if they're being kept on the cloud or not on the cloud in that?
In the policy?
Yeah, in the policy. It tells where the records are being kept. And it has a exemption for Bakersfield in there.
Rick, what page are you on?
I don't know.
They're listed.
I know, but I'm trying to find it. I didn't write it down ahead of time. It's where
It must be in packet 2. I just went through packet 1. I'm not seeing it.
it's not in
Is it in the FERPA policy?
yeah, I believe that's their 8.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be in there.
Okay, the exemption for Bakersfield has to do with their PBIS system. So that is, the Swiss system is truly only for Bakersfield.
Okay.
I've never been told that we need to disclose anything that's kept online. What I do know is that it is, if parents make a request for records, anything that we have online is included with that records request.
Okay. All right. So we don't have to. So if records are online, we don't have to disclose. If they're kept in the cloud or whatever, we don't have to disclose that.
I mean, we could add that. I mean,
I didn't know if we had to, or if legally we had to.
Well, it says at the very bottom, electronic copies may also be available on the relevant school computer server. So I wonder if it's covered under that little, there's an asterisk statement at the very end.
I think that makes sense, because then the relevant server, if it's the cloud, that's what the relevant server is.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's okay. This came from model policy that our lawyers actually looked at, and it came from VSBA originally, and we've done some work in this policy in the last 4 or 5 years with our attorney.
Okay.
Are there any more questions or comments around policy or consent agenda? If having none, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I will make the motion.
Perfect. Rick made the motion, so Sarah,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Mort,
Aye.
and Rick.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that brings us to agenda preview and prioritization. Are there any changes in the agenda tonight? You're muted.
I have to do that at least one time a meeting.
I know.
We don't have any changes, but we do have a student here to be recognized under visitor. I don't need to change.
Okay,
that.
great. Okay. So, so that brings us to the recognition of visitors. So, if the visitor I see, it's Victoria. Hi, Victoria. Welcome. Hi. Yeah, you're welcome. And I see Casey here is also a visitor. Are there any others, or are those the two? Looks like those are the two.
Justin Fenard as well.
Right, Justin. Are you Justin? Are you part of the spotlight, or are you as a visitor?
I'm a student. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you are not.
Probably the spotlight. I don't know.
Although I probably thought that at one time. Okay, so Victoria and Casey, why don't you take it away and talk about why you're here?
I am here because I sent a letter to the board asking about changing the valedictorian and salutatorian and adding that onto the Latin honor system this year. And I'm advocating for my class and the classes behind me.
Great. We received your letter. I believe the rest of the board also saw that letter as well. Very well done.
Thank you.
So did you want to maybe to the board a little bit of rationale why you want to make that change?
I stated that in my letter because I believe that there are students that put a lot of hard work into their studies and should be recognized at graduation, and also include the banners in the gyms at the high schools. And as far as I know, that is not going to happen with the Latin honor system. And I believe that this is something that is very important that happens at graduation.
Let me just ask a question. So in your letter, you stated that having their name on a banner gives students a great kind of motivation to strive to have their name on the wall. What are your thoughts about having some kind of recognition system like that if it's not valedictorian and salutatorian? What do you think?
I think that would be great, because for me, I know that that was a motivation for me, seeing the students before me receive those honors, and knowing the students that were on those banners, seeing that every day really helped.
Right, that kind of recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Victoria or comments?
I got a couple questions for Victoria, but I didn't know maybe if Lynn wanted to go, if we want to talk about this a little bit, and maybe Lynn go over why the policy is what it is first.
Sure. So the policy changed as the schools were working towards developing proficiency-based graduation systems. And we've made some shifts away from that 100-point scale that students were historically scored on, to more of a proficiency scale, a 4-point scale. And it's much harder to get really precise in a 4-point scale what we found over time was that 100-point scale, sometimes what would separate a valedictorian and a salutatorian, or a salutatorian from someone who was number 3, could have been 1/10 of a point or 1/100th of a point. Both students having really, really high success academically, but only room for that one student to get the recognition. So a lot of schools in the country have moved away from, as they've leaned towards proficiency-based systems in standards or proficiency-based grading, they've moved away from the valedictorian, salutatorian, and towards a Latin honor system, so that more students, you set the target of this is what it equals to be magna cum laude or summa cum laude or cum laude, and more students have the opportunity to work really hard to be able to meet those goals within that Latin honor system, and more students are recognized. One of the other pieces of that is, and I'm not suggesting, Victoria, this is you at all, but there is a history of, like, there's a ton of pressure that some kids put on themselves, and sometimes that competition and that pressure for that sole spot is crushing for certain students. And when they don't get it by 1/10 of a point or 100th of a point, it feels like there's no recognition, even though their performance is really close. If you go through 4 years and you're 1/100th of a point away from someone else, that distinction is very small. But recognizing, the honor is certainly meaningful for the person who achieves it. So that's kind of historically where we're at. I was on a meeting the other day, just checked in with some of my colleagues around the state to just see where others were in terms of, who still has the valedictorian, salutatorian, and who has completely shifted to Latin honors. And the majority of the other systems, the meeting probably had 17 or 18 other superintendents on it, and I think there were 3 left that still had the valedictorian, salutatorian. For the most part, that shift has been made and will continue to be made around Vermont.
So Victoria, I guess I want to let you know I'm with you in spirit about 110%. I think that traditionally the valedictorian, salutatorian, was the one time where really academics were kind of put in the front. I think it has a tendency to be, second to sports a lot of times, So traditionally it was the one time it was put in front. But for me, it's the logistics of how do you determine that person now that it becomes really hard to determine who that one person is, And if you think about it, we have early college students, that no longer would be in the running for valedictorian. Those classes that are taken at colleges don't count, So it's really hard to come up with a fair system in order to determine who that one person is.
Yes.
But you're right, we should be thinking about, like, how do we honor the people and motivate the people who have worked so hard? So you definitely have given us something to think about for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk about it, and we will not make that decision lightly. So,
Okay.
but thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
Yes. So I was just wondering when that decision would be made.
That is a good question. Is
Or if
that
you
some,
have a timeline.
yeah, do we have a timeline? Is that something the board feels like they want to sit and think about, or do you want to have that conversation tonight and make a decision, or when do you see us making that decision?
I'm also wondering if you want some feedback from your principals to maybe
Oh, that makes sense. That
So-
is actually a good idea, because it wouldn't, if we made that decision for Richford, it would definitely have impacts on
Right.
Enosburg as well.
They
So
might
that is
already
a good
have
point
some
that we should.
plans. Polly, there might already be some plans that people are considering. So maybe if you ask us to come back with some thoughts and the board could weigh in on those thoughts for the next meeting, do you think that would be?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Does that make sense, Victoria? That,
Yes.
yeah, great. Okay. So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense to gather the information from the principals and their thoughts, and then report. Great.
Okay. Thank you
Anything
very
else?
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria, for bringing it
Thank
to
you
the
for
board.
coming.
Yes.
you,
Yeah,
Victoria.
great job. Okay, what is next? Let's see. Oh, Lisa, Spotlight, Enosburg Middle School. You are up.
So it's my pleasure tonight to pass the baton to Justin Pinard. Justin is here to talk about social emotional learning in the middle school and share some data with you. So
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
guidance counselor of the year, I might note.
Thanks.
Here you go,
Um,
Justin.
Do I have access to share my screen by chance?
Yes,
If that's possible.
you have
You
it.
do.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm with it. One sec. Oh, sorry. Technical difficulties. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm on my new MacBook. I think I'm gonna have to quit the meeting real quick and join back up to get the preferences updated. Sorry about that. I'll be right back.
Polly, how about you go to Morgan and then we'll come back to Spotlight.
Sounds good. Morgan.
Thanks. I kept this one pretty light. First of all, congratulations on your budget vote, as well as rebuilding your capital reserve fund. I'm sure all of the principals on the Zoom have plans for it already. We won't do anything official until the 30-day rescind period, but your votes were both reasonably solid, and there were only 3 budgets that were voted down across the state. In terms of FY20, I have signed off on your audit. I should have a final version for you to review before your next board meeting, and then at that board meeting, we'll have you take action to accept that audit. As predicted, there were no findings, so no concerns there for the first year of the new district. For FY21, I did send out a financial report by email a few days ago. What I have not done yet, which I've done in years past, was give you a column for where I anticipate your budget's going to end up. I may still do that, but I did want to point to 2 things on the horizon, which I have mentioned before, that cause me concern, and just make sure you're aware of those. I've talked in the past about the shortfall in tuition revenue for this year. We billed out many fewer kids than we had budgeted for in the budget. We are now going through our second semester tuition bills, and I imagine that those will be out probably towards the end of this week. And so I'll be able to give an exact number to that at that point. But right now I'm anticipating in the neighborhood of 375,000 less money coming in than we had hoped for tuition. We had also talked about the true up for FY20 tuition bills. So those would be the kids that were at Richford and Enosburg high schools last year. The state will eventually set an actual tuition rate, and then we will go back to your sending towns and either cut them a check or bill them for more to clean up the difference between what we thought your tuition rate would be and what the state says you're allowed to charge. largely because of the tech center coming in below what we anticipated. I am guessing that we're going to be sending back around 100,000. Most of that is going to go to NMV, but any district that has had kids in the tech center will be seeing some of that. That is an expense that we can pay this year if we have the funds for it, but we can also punt that to next year. So there's a little bit of flexibility in when we take that hit. At this point, I'm not going to tell your principals that we need to do a spending freeze. There's still a lot of moving targets in terms of the COVID grant funding and what can be put to that, as well as starting to look through lines in your budget like field trips and sports, which we know are going to be underspent. So nobody needs to panic at this point, but I just wanted to give you that heads up, and we'll have a clearer picture. I'm hoping at your April meeting, we'll at least have the final build back numbers by then with any luck and more final tuition numbers. So I'll pause there if there are any questions on that. Okay.
I guess, actually, sorry, how are we on our projections for, well, is that what you were just talking about, the tuition for next year? What do our numbers look like?
For the year that we're currently in? No, you mean for
for instance,
FY22?
income, yeah.
Yeah, so that's this current year. In terms of next year's projections, we won't know until
Okay.
September 9th when kids show up, and really not until November when the sending districts have their opportunity to try to get somebody else to pay the bill for those kids.
Great, okay.
Any news on the yield, Morgan?
No, the Ed Committee is taking up testimony on that this week. So I believe they're going to try to meet crossover with that. The yield bill is a bill that doesn't really have to follow any of the laws or the procedures of the legislature. So they could sit on that until the very end of the session. Now that we've had our budget votes and all those budgets for the most part are passed, I don't think there's really any pressure on them to move quickly. But if there are any storm clouds, we will certainly be hearing that from the Joint Fiscal Office saying that they need to rejigger their estimates. So the only other item that I have for you tonight is around your lawn mowing contracts. Enosburg schools and Richford schools each have separate contracts with separate providers. They were both a one-year contract, and so you, the board, have the opportunity to tell me whether you want those bid out again, or whether you want those, you want me to approach those providers to see if they will roll over the contract on the same terms. I have at least tipped all of your principals on that. I think the experience is different between the two sides, and so I think I'll let Enosburg go first, and Joseph is probably the one who hears the most about fields in Enosburg from Doug and from your AD there. The current provider there is Lawyers Lawn Care, I believe, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, in consulting with both Doug and with Anthony Sorrentino, our AD, both fellows told me that they are very satisfied with Lawyers, and they cooperate. So if we feel we're going to be getting, say they're on, the Lawyers are on schedule to mow, and we know there's going to be some rain, they're very open to having a suggestion that they can postpone the mowing till a more appropriate day. So we've had no complaints at all with the provider we have. We'd like to continue.
And you do have the option of treating these two contracts separately, or treating the district as a whole and doing the same thing for both sides. That's completely in your purview. And then on the Richford side, I'll let Kelly or Beth speak to King's, who's the current provider there, and I've had conversations with the same folks that Beth has, so I can help fill in there as well.
Well, King's has been the contractor as long as I've been in Richford. They're reliable and fast. They're very fast. And the biggest complaint we have with them is that they don't do a great job on our soccer field. They will mow it in the rain. I've gone out repeatedly in the pouring rain and said, please do not go on this field in the rain. But I don't know if there's different people each time or if they just ignore me, but they definitely go on the field in the rain. And that field needs some TLC. We've been through a lot of issues with it. And they definitely do come during the school day, but I don't think we're going to get a contractor that doesn't come during the school day. So the biggest issue is the field, but they're dirt cheap.
Is there anything you want to add to that, Kelly?
I think I would just ditto that they are very fast and they often do mow in the rain, and it can leave quite a, well, when you mow long lawns in the rain, you know what you have. So that sometimes is an issue.
Any thoughts from the board of how they'd like to proceed? I have my thoughts, but I'd like to hear yours.
I will put out there as an option with really with either contractor. You could have probably the ADs or somebody at the school level rather than me, but have somebody sit down with either contractor and address those concerns and sort of firm that up in terms of the contract language, to the extent that those changes would increase their cost. They may not be willing to roll it over for the same price. And so if that's the direction you would want to go, I think you'd want to give us a contingency to bid it out if we were unable to secure that, just so that we're not looking at April 9th and beginning the process at that point.
I think that if we do ask to roll it over, that somebody should sit down with King's and maybe with the owner, because I've spoken every year with the workers and it seems to fall on deaf ears. And it just might be that there's a different person I speak to each time. I don't really know who I'm talking to. But if you do outline the conditions more clearly in the bid, it might help.
Thoughts?
I thought it would be if you're happy otherwise and you're able to get that clarified and addressed for the same price, it would make sense to continue with them. But if that price does change, then I think it makes sense to bring in some competition and send it out to bid.
Anybody else?
I'd be inclined to bid out the Richford contract with conditions that we want met and see what we come back with. I think I'm okay with lawyers, rolling over for another year on the same terms if they're willing.
More, any ideas?
Could we do one contract for both, or would lawyers be willing?
So the way that we've done this in the past, I think at least for plowing, is we've put it out to bid and offered folks the ability to bid on one town or the other town or both towns combined. I think that the reason to do that is that you are not necessarily going to knock out smaller contractors who don't feel they could handle all 5 campuses, but could do 2 or 3. But you could certainly bid it out that way. And in theory, if there's somebody who has the ability to do both, you would hope that you get a better price for that.
Would that mean you'd have to put Enosburg out to bid as well?
If I'm understanding Mort right, then yes.
You know, I think the other thing, Amy, just because we put it out to bid doesn't mean we have to take the lowest bidder. So,
Right.
putting it out to bid, just kind of know where you stand. I think it's never a bad thing to do. I don't think it's not saying that, the contractor there is doing a bad job or is overpriced or anything. You just know where you are,
Yep.
My sense is that we keep Enosburg, bid Richford, and then if lawyer wants to bid for Richford too, then so be it, right? And if not, then we at least have other bids maybe that come in.
Yeah, that sounds a little fishy on the legal.
Oh, it does? How?
Because you're only allowing one person to bid, basically on a larger contract.
Well, unless you had two separate contracts for a year and then next year you could make the decision to put them both out to bid.
Yeah, I guess you can do that as well. Yep. So you could have, I guess you can have lawyers bid on the Richford contract if they wanted it.
And if I remember correctly, lawyers didn't bid on both. They bid specifically just on Enosburg because I think he knew that he couldn't do both.
Yeah, that's what I remember too.
Now, whether that situation has changed or not, we're not sure. And if it has, then maybe he would put in a bid for Richford. If not, then somebody's going to put in a bid for Richford. Right? But that's just my thought. Either way, I feel like something needs to happen.
Paul, am I hearing you say leave Enosburg and open up Richford?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yep. I'm in support of that. Unless Rick, you're saying you want to open them both up to see if we
No,
have
I'm fine with
anyone
I'm fine with that. It's good.
Cool.
Sarah, Mort, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm good with that. So that sounds good.
Okay.
I don't think I need a motion.
Okay. You don't need a motion? Okay.
Nope, I am reading the direction of the board to approach lawyer about rolling over Enosburg and to bid out Richford.
And with that caveat that if, for instance, if lawyers' prices increase significantly, then we potentially do go out to bid.
Well, you would not, you would have to if they increase the price.
Okay, that's okay, good.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, is that it, Morgan?
That is all I have.
Okay, so back to Justin. Justin, you are up.
Thank you. Sorry, I appreciate the flexibility. Saying it should work now. There. Can people see that? Yeah, so I get to talk, pretty pumped to get to talk about SEL, social emotional learning, and honestly, since I haven't been at a board meeting, so this is pretty cool. And two, I'm not exactly sure what folks are looking for with the spotlight presentation, so please feel free to interrupt as I go and ask questions, because I don't want to be too redundant and repetitive, since social emotional learning encompasses a lot, with individuals to classroom support to school-wide culture to community partnerships and above that. So there's a ton, and I don't want to bore anyone's ear off for forever, because I could just talk and talk about it. But
Listen, we've typically had about 10 or 15 minutes for the spotlight, and then the board will ask you questions at the end if they want to clarify anything.
Perfect.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's what Lisa had shared as well. So I just sort of kick things off with each of the social emotional learning areas, the definition that we gave for our school proficiency standards, and then each standard has indicators of how we can tell if students are meeting those areas. So self-awareness is one of the main ones, recognizing emotions, thoughts, values, strengths, as well as limitations, and then how they influence behavior. And I won't read everything here. on the slide, but this was a lot to do with goal setting for the middle school level and identifying things that get our students dysregulated. And then we'll move into self-management and how to deal with those. Each of these slides in the beginning, there's 5 for the 5 areas. I just jotted some notes about like what our school right now is doing to address each of these areas. Some overlap, of course, and other things are specific. And at any time, if you want to see the ones highlighted in blue are like hyperlinks to documents that I can open if you want to see like what those are. And then after this, there's some data from a few surveys to share as well. So culture-wise, like we're still sticking with growth mindset, which is really nice. That way students know, especially this year with like the uncertainty, it's nice to know like students can still make progress and things aren't fixed. So that's been ingrained in the school culture since I came in like 4 years ago, which is awesome. Personalized learning plans or PLPs have been a huge part of the middle school. It's been tougher to manage those this year. We have a huge plan for that really looks into setting academic and personal goals. And then each student gets to like share the strengths and growth areas for their classes, like their core subject areas, which is great. And then that's a model that's even used for sharing to parents and guardians at conferences. So there's a lot of like roles with that. We do a lot of stress management, education, skill building, as you'd probably imagine. Trying to incorporate mindfulness more alongside like trauma-informed practices, as we've learned over and over again in our in-services and beyond. Just the research and folks keep sharing that connection and regulation are humongous like key indicators for student success academically. So we're just trying to like step out of our comfort zone. This year's tough because like everyone's already overloaded. And so I'm hopeful for the following years, especially with restorative practices sort of sweeping into our schools and our SU slow and steady, which is nice, which is a good communal framework that really aligns with social emotional learning. So I was super pleased that we're not only emphasizing SEL like this year and well-being for students and also like down the road in future years. And something we do every year since I've been here is a meaningful connection survey, which I have data from that from last year and this fall, which is good. And then this check-in survey was new to us this year. Nick DeVita, who's the SU school psychologist, is that right, Lynn?
Yes, he's also the SEL coordinator.
Coordinator, yep. So he came in with like a plethora of great ideas. So I definitely borrowed and adapted like a daily check-in survey. And ideally, like this could be done each day, especially on remote days since it's all virtual. We haven't had the luxury to do it every day. So I do have some data from it, which is nice. But just want to give you a heads up, that's the intention down the road. And of course, like modeling from our staff is really important with all of this. I can speed things up. Self-management is regulating emotions and managing daily stressors. One thing we did during an in-service and then with our students was sharing like a time management and organizational skill building activity. And this helped them identify anything that like dysregulated them in terms of academics. And we saw this right away in the beginning of the year, like building that foundation for our students that they can lean on with self-management and the time management skills, which we're still finding is a humongous struggle for students 6 through 8 at least. And it's nothing on them. Like we've tried, we keep trying and getting creative, and a lot of students have built those skills and a lot of students still have growth in that area as well. So it's a good like indicator on our end for things we can keep getting better at. This year has also allowed a ton of additional outdoor and connection time with students, which is really nice, just to fill some time, mask breaks and things like that, which also meets social emotional learning standards, which is nice. Social awareness is huge. This one's sometimes a tricky like indicator and area to like measure quantitatively. However, we try to just like integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion in our curriculum whenever possible. We celebrate all identities and we do skill building around that, just taking perspective of others and appreciating similarities and our differences. So that's I'm really on board with that and glad our school culture is shifting even more so that way. Relationship skills, definitely necessary outside of school as well. So we try to make that connection whenever possible, like this you can use in the real world or even at Cold Hollow, things like that where in jobs and like outside of school interactions, relationships are huge, and those positive social skills. We do this through a lot of like collaborative games and activities in class. We have inclusive content and education to build relationships around like consent and healthy relationships, which is good. We have a lot of student groups this year. Unfortunately, we don't have as many, just the nature of the beast and not being able to mix students in the same way. So we have a lot of those. And then I'll go over this in a moment, the Meaningful Connection Survey, which is something we do every year. And then finally, responsible decision making, just making those ethical choices and developing appropriate like problem solving skills to solve those, to come up with solutions. And we do this through like giving opportunities for conflict resolution and through classroom curriculum, as well as multiple opportunities for student voice, which is huge. So here's some things I've heard time and time again this year from our students, because I think that's been a big question, like how the heck are our students doing in all of this? And I just wanted to share some of like the qualitative themes that I've heard students say. So I can share some as you're reading them. There's quite a bit of like challenges, and there's definitely positives too. And some of those positives are students have identified that being in school with their friends and teachers has been incredibly helpful to counteracting like feeling isolated and alone, and through the monotonous like daily routine every day. So that's cool to hear that like we're still able to do that and provide that for students being in person. Very thankful for that. Especially with our high flyers, some students have noted that like, wow, I can make my own schedule. I can go at my own pace, and they can like cruise through things or go at a slower pace if need be. So that's been actually really helpful for a large chunk of our students. And then as you see some of the other ones, like students have had to take on a lot of other responsibilities at home. School used to be like the place that they went to learn, and home was home away from school. And now they're just like so mixed together that it's been really hard on students to be in school 2 days and then off for 5, 2, 5, 2, 5 with our hybrid model. So it's like you're jumping into intense days of learning because we have limited time, and then you're out, hopefully still learning, and then other responsibilities creep in. So aside from wearing masks and following those social guidelines, I think motivation's been really tough for our students this year. And it's definitely like, it's sad to see too, because a lot of our students we know were super successful in the past have sometimes dropped down, and it's been more of like a roller coaster with them this year. And we know their well-being just leads to that academic success. So we're hopeful that we can get things moving and hear some good news from the governor and getting more students back in person safely. So briefly, in the last like 5 minutes, just going over some data from first the student check-in survey, which was introduced this year. I can skip some. So the first semester was sort of testing the waters, and that was with some 8th graders. And I'll go back to this in a second. The second semester was 6 through 8. So all students got to take that. And the colors aren't representative of the responses, but we had things they could choose from, like today, like I'm feeling good, calm, I'm okay, sad, or mad. And then the other ones are write-ins. If you looking at like the red, it seems a lot of folks are feeling calm in the first semester. Maybe just being back at school was really nice for them. Good chunk of students were feeling energized or just feeling good. And then a lot of neutrals as well. Surprisingly, like not as many sad or mad, like some of the harder emotions. So that was cool to see. Pretty similar in this current semester, sorry, with students feeling calm and regulated and at ease, which was really good to hear. And then a lot more of like neutral. So I think, although those aren't like the high intense emotions, it's still good to keep on our radars, which has been super helpful with this, as we can pinpoint students. And I've already met personally, since being the school counselor, I've met with at least a couple students already from this that I had no idea like things were going on. So it's already sparked like additional check-ins, which is really helpful. Just another avenue besides a student saying like, hey, like I'm not doing great today. Like some students might feel comfortable writing it. So that's nice. Briefly on this slide. So these next two, what are you looking forward to today? So the ones that are circled, students were looking for about half or 30% of students, 51 students were looking forward to spending time with friends. And then a little bit with family as well. And then overall, over half, 58, about 59% were looking forward to a core subject area, which is really nice. So that's math, science, global citizenship, and language arts. So that was cool to see, and that actually increased in our current semester. About 72% have been looking forward to a core class or subject area, which is really good to hear. Still high percentages for spending time with friends, more on spending time with family for that social aspect. And it's just, I don't know, it was really enlightening to see that students were actually looking forward to classes this year in that sense of normalcy. This one is pretty brief. How did you sleep last night? And then did you eat breakfast? Looking for different correlations there as well. And a lot more students in this current semester are in like the middle areas of the graph on the left, where they didn't get a full 8 hours of sleep. So that's been something to pay attention to, that there's been a high chunk like in the middle. So I think sleep has definitely changed for our students. And it can change daily, like these are just snapshots, of course. The breakfast one is also very interesting, that, you know, we provide free breakfast, and yet like almost half of students have still said no to eating breakfast in the morning. So I know just having energy is a huge part of success as well for students. So hopefully we can figure out how to get them some food. And then this was refreshing to see, like not a lot of students in either semester like indicated in the survey at least that something was bothering them that day. I always like to have that question there. But it was a fairly low percentage. It's still important, like even if there was just one student to check in with them, of course. But a large chunk seemed to do okay. And then our connection survey, get this every year. Things like feeling comfortable being myself at school between this fall and last year, which are really good to see some of these stats as well. So a large percentage, the green and dark, like, sorry, I guess like pink or purple is agree and strongly agree. And those take up more than half, which is really cool to see. Between the 2 years, it's like 63% for this year and 69% for last year. So they're pretty similar in terms of students who feel like they can be themselves at school, which is really, really awesome. Adults at school care about me, are interested in my opinions. I thought this would be an important one to take a snapshot of. And these were also similar percentages between the 2 years. This year being about 78% of students who agree or strongly agree, and last year was 75% who agree or strongly agree. So that one's huge. About 3/4 of students feel that teachers care about them and their opinions, which is fantastic. And then I feel like at least one adult at school truly knows me, and I feel comfortable talking with them about things in my life, getting a little bit deeper into that trust aspect of connection. Still a decent amount of students, about 58% agree or strongly agree if you combine those. And then last year we had made some adjustments. So the questions were slightly worded differently. That's why there's 3 graphs on here. They were kind of separated into separate questions before. So very similar results, and around between 40 to 60% of students agreed that at least one adult knew them and they had like a connection with them. And then this was nice to see, over 75% of students this year and last year feel like there's chances to actually talk with adults one-to-one, more privately or personally like that, which is really cool to see in like the busy school day. So they know they have that predictability, like, okay, I can go to school and talk to one of my teachers, and they'll be able to listen to me. And then the last question we like to ask in a different way of connection is like, if I was absent, would an adult miss me? And still a decent percentage, about 45% from this fall and 41 from last year would agree and strongly agree combined. So under half of the respondents, as you see, it's doesn't seem like a lot of respondents. Our middle school is under 100 students. So it's one of the main takeaways for me with this is, although like some of the disagree or strongly disagree was low percentages, that's still a large chunk of students. I mean, if we make it even, like out of 100 students, that could be 10 or 11 students. Even if the percentage seems low, like that's still a lot of students. Sometimes, 30 students disagree that like they don't feel like there's a connection. And so that's worrisome as well. And these surveys have really helped us pinpoint students who we thought had really strong connections with certain staff, and they don't list anyone, because we give them opportunities to list out teachers they can connect with. So it's been really eye-opening. And then in the spring, trying to get some things figured out going forward before April. And I know the high school, or the Enosburg High School, has been doing an engaged schools survey to get some similar information. So I'd like to start, it's a goal to partner with them and get some more concrete and quantitative, like SEL related data for how students are doing, which will help us move forward, especially in terms of like thinking about a recovery plan and what next year will look like and things like that. But I think I went over time, so I will shut up and if there's any questions. Sorry to take up time.
That's really great, Justin. I was thrilled to see the data that you had to present. It's going to be very useful. As I was listening, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be really useful for the recovery plan. And you know it too, you just stated it at the end.
Yep. It's definitely been helpful, like getting more insight from you and others about the recovery plan, the needs, and why the data collection is so important, especially this year. So I'm on board.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to like figure out where the kids are at. You hear lots of kind of warning bells about kids, social emotional state during this time period, but to actually have it in numbers helps make your decisions, right? So that was great. Anybody questions, comments?
Thank you. I'm really glad that we're doing this work in our district, especially just to get it across our different schools and not just have everyone kind of doing their own thing, but really trying to systematize it is going to be great. And the data, I'm a giant data geek, so.
Yeah, I look forward to having more opportunities for like the qualitative data as well as like the numbers. I feel like having both of those just makes our cases extra, like strengthens them extra, as just opposed to having numbers. So looking for ways to like sort of like interview students or pull out themes from them has been really helpful this year.
It's the story behind the numbers often that are just as important. It's great.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Justin, and thank you, Lisa. We're going to move on.
Thank you.
So we did Morgan, and now we have Lynn.
Okay, I'll start us off with personnel. We have a few things that the board will have to take care of under personnel. First up is hiring. So I have two.
Hey, Lynn, I can barely hear you for some reason.
That's strange. Can you hear me now?
Not really well.
I don't have anything covering anything. That's strange.
Just thumb over the over your microphone.
I'm not touching anything. I did do that, but not tonight. I think, Polly, maybe go to principals. I'll log out and try to log back in myself.
Okay. So principals, you're up, and we are going to start with Kelly. Do you have anything other than what's in your informational report?
I don't. Everything's informational.
Oh, great, thanks. And Beth. Okay, I'm gonna come back to Beth. I'm gonna go Jen. Oh, you're muted.
Everything's informational.
Great,
And
thanks.
Beth did have to step off for a second.
Oh, okay. Lisa, do you have anything other than what's in your report?
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. And Joseph?
Yeah, I have one thing under other,
Mhm.
and I wanted to bring it to the board's attention tonight. The timing is interesting because a group of students came to me today, seniors in particular, who were concerned about this year not having the kind of senior privileges they had in the past. The main area of complaint was the fee that we charge seniors to park their cars in the lot on the side of the school. And so I didn't have a lot of the history because it predates my tenure here. And so I did a little digging around, and what I heard was that the fee that was charged to students for parking in that lot was to help offset the cost of paving a lot on the side. I don't know whether that's true or not, that it used to be dirt and then it got blacktopped, and charging that fee of $40 per student per year helped. Now this year we cut the fee in half because we went on a hybrid model, and so students who were parking 5 days a week are now parking 2. So some of the students who came to me said even cutting the cost in half was a hardship. And I said, well, they wanted me to change it. I said, well, I'm going to bring this to the board. I needed some guidance and advice and a little bit of the historical context for this. And so I said I would do that and I'd get back to them. Because there are students who've already contributed and they paid their $20 to park there 2 days a week, and we're not going to be refunding that money, but we're looking at in the future, like moving towards next year. If you could help guide me with some of the thinking and some of the history here and where the board wants to go with this, that would be helpful.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Yeah, it actually might be a little bit better.
I just think this is going to predate this board. I don't think anybody on this board is going to know anything about the context of this. I'm wondering if we should look at it through the lens of equity and what happens at Richford in terms of student parking. Is there a fee in Richford?
No. There's no fee. You have to apply for a parking spot. Show us like your license, proof of registration, and insurance. And as long as there are spots, you can park there. If there aren't enough spots, we have had kids park in the municipal parking lot at the bottom of the hill before and walk up, because we have run out of spots before, but we've never charged.
So there are a lot of kids who would like to park there, but they find that the fee is prohibited. They said that especially during COVID, when some of their folks are not even working down, and that $20 could be used better. They said it may not seem like a big fee to me, but what happens is the townspeople have complained with all the cars that where they park out on the street, and we've been trying to address that. Jim Lynch, our SRO, has worked with the kids, and you know, so have I, to say, you know, we can't be taking up all that space out on the streets of Enosburg. And they go, well, we don't want to pay that money to park in the parking lot.
Would you have enough spaces if they were to park in the parking lot?
Yes, it's not a matter of that.
Oh, okay.
I think you have an embedded overflow in the soccer, on the soccer field. I truthfully, from my perspective, I worry about the equity. Parking at the school or parking in the lot should be defined by what you can afford. So there's no fee in Richford. Does the board feel that there's a necessity to continue to have a fee in Enosburg for parking?
I don't think so. That's just my opinion, but I don't think if you have the spots, it's one thing if you're trying to manage the number of people who you want parking in that, and by doing that, you're charging a fee. Even that's an equity issue, frankly. But maybe it's a lottery system, first come first serve system. Maybe it's all of that, but I don't think charging makes sense. But that's me.
Yeah, I'd just maybe I would like to look at why we've charged for it in the past. Maybe if we can figure out why, because I think we voted on, Polly, didn't we vote on the amount we charged a couple of years ago? I think we voted on the amount we charged not too long ago.
I don't remember.
But why? And yeah, I think it might be an equity thing, but I mean, it is a car, right? So, I mean, if they can afford a car and they can afford a gas, then, a nominal fee to park there might not be a bad thing. We do offer free transportation. So, I'm not sure I buy the equity thing quite so much in this case, but I think we probably should look and see why we were charging the fees in the first place, if we could figure that out. And we could bring it back to the board next month, I think should be fine. Just my thoughts.
Joseph, were you saying that you looked into that today and found it had to do with paving?
That it had to do with offsetting the cost of paving the parking lot, a parking lot that was once dirt and now it's blacktop.
So Morgan, where are those fees going that are collected?
I believe they're just going into the general fund.
And Joseph, you said I just want to clarify, there are plenty of parking spots for the people who would potentially, you believe, be interested?
Right, and Lynn had also stated, and it's true, that an overflow of cars would go down by the soccer fields. There's parking area down there as well.
I do think you've had years where there hasn't been enough spots. I think this year there would be because of the hybrid.
Yep.
I think that there have been years where that's become like this, where the seniors park and other underclassmen park in the overflow. That I think has been a while.
I wonder if like the ones that have already paid this year, if they could have like preferred parking. And then if we remove the fee, that those folks would have just whatever's left over. It also makes me wonder about like moving, if we wanted to have a system, if there was more, if it became an issue of enough room of like having it not necessarily be monetary, but some community give back that would be required to have a parking spot, but that might become something bigger to manage in and of itself. But I do like the concept of having a little bit of a give back to create a sense of community.
The thing that I was most impressed about was the fact that this group of kids felt comfortable enough to come and express their opinions on this. And they did it in a very respectful, thoughtful way. And because we've been talking a lot about, and they remind me of this all the time. They go, okay, so Mr. Dunham, you're always talking about student voice, increasing student voice. So, you got to give us some credit for not being afraid to come to the principal's office to talk about this request. And I said, that's true. And I said, your timing's great because we've got a board meeting tonight and I'll bring it up. So, but the thinking was, why do we have to pay for a parking lot at school? That was just what they were asking. They weren't giving it a real global picture. They were just going, I want to come to school. I come here because I'm old enough to have a car. I have a license and I have a car or a truck and I come to school and that's how I get here. Why do I have to pay to park my car at school?
That's a valid point. It's a valid point. I mean, like coming from BFA where there are no parking spots, right? Kids have to park on the street and kids show up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get a parking spot. But if you have the spots, kids should be able to come to school and park.
Yeah, especially if we don't have a specific fund that it's going for, that's going to be functionally related to that. For me, there's no real need.
I think you just to jump in, but I think you should just advertise for, recruitment purposes that teachers get free parking. Maybe that'll help them come to our schools.
That is recruitment. And you get free
You've been
parking in
sitting on
Enosburg
that.
and
You've been sitting
Richford.
on that this whole conversation.
I think we just found the magic bullet. Okay. Do we need a motion? I don't know if more or Sarah, and if you want to weigh in or if you're good with that.
I agree
I'm
with
good
no
with it.
fee.
You don't believe in the fee. Okay. And Mort, you're good with it?
No fee.
So did you need just a direction or do we need to make a motion? Just a direction. Okay. So yes, direct now. But the kids who have already paid, if you're not going to refund them, maybe the kids who haven't paid get park over in the overflow for the rest of the year. That being said, but okay.
Thank
So
you
let's
all.
thank you. Cycle back to Beth. Beth, do you have anything other than your informational?
I had a letter of resignation. Do we need to act on that, Lynn, or are you going to do that under yours?
I have it under mine, but feel free if you want to do it under yours.
Doesn't matter. Doug McDonald is not returning next year to teach at all. He had retired a few years ago and was only working very part-time, but he is not returning next year.
So I would entertain a motion to accept his resignation.
I'll make that motion.
Mort makes the motion and I'll take a roll. Rick?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So moved. Anything else, Beth?
No, I'm sorry. I had to step away. There was an ATV that kept going around and it was distracting me and I had to go and tell them to go.
You get out of town. Exactly.
Did.
So I'll just go to Nate, finish up the principles. Anything to add other than your report?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I need to do is numbers are not looking great for next year, especially in diversified ag. So I am planning on repurposing Sarah Stebbins to be our lead pre-tech. I want to start a pre-tech program for mostly 10th graders, but it'd be access to potentially 9th graders as well. I need board approval for the approval process for the AOE. The pre-tech program would be, again, it'd just be students that are interested in the hands-on learning, offering a math and English credit per state guidance, state regulations in that, because you need academic credits associated with that because they'll be taken as a 10th grader. And again, for AOE approval process, I need board approval of that. So if you have questions about what pre-tech is or what that looks like, I'm also amending my Perkins grant to pay for the next few years, pay for Sarah Stebbins' half-time salary out of grant money. So that'll help our local budget as well.
So you haven't had a pre-tech program in the past? You have, haven't you?
Well, we've had pre-tech foundations classes in the past. Other schedules have allowed our teachers to teach other, when we had 8 periods a day, there was time for our teachers to do that. But now with a 4x4 schedule, the first 2 blocks are morning program, the second 2 blocks are afternoon program. So our teachers don't have any room for a pre-tech program. So we have not had a pre-tech the last few years, especially, and that's a foundation. This would be an exploratory where there's academic credit, and it would be like a program. It would be from 8:15 to 10:35, allowing Richford students to access it as well because of the bus.
And what grades is that geared towards?
10th graders.
Okay, you said that, right?
Yeah, the state says 9th and 10th graders, and we would open it up to 9th graders if there was space, but I think it's important for them to start their high school career off in high school and then look at us but there might be some kids that are at risk where that might be a saving grace. So if that's the case, then we would obviously accept them.
Right.
Nate, can you talk a little bit about the middle school portion of Sarah's time and the pre-tech and the career exploration ideas and the remote inclusion of other schools as well.
Sure. We're being asked by Perkins to reach out to grades 7 through 10. And we most recently was Sarah. We sent Sarah Stebbins. She goes up to Richford Middle School. First semester, so the first semester this year, she did, I believe, a 8th grade career exploration class. And now I think she's doing a diversified ag class, but we have her going to Richford every day. And next year, in at least the second semester, she'll be doing a career exploration class for Enosburg Middle School. And again, that's Perkins funded, and that's one of our mandates of outreach, but we're only hitting those 2 schools. So in meeting with Lynn the other day, and as much as Zoom has become, virtual learning has become a norm, we're wondering if we can have other middle schools access that career exploration piece during the time she's teaching either at Richford or at Enosburg, and have other students attend that virtually. So I haven't got too far in exploring that yet. I'm moving slowly because I'm just broke the news to her that she'll be our new pre-tech teacher, but so I don't want to tell her she's got all these new assignments yet, but that's something that I think is a low-hanging fruit that we can tackle.
And so you need a motion to approve the pre-tech?
Yes.
Okay.
I will make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion. I'll take a roll. Sarah?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And Gab. Last. Oh, and sorry, anything else, Nate?
No, sure. I want to just put a plug in that we just this past month of our students of the month get preferred parking at our center. So,
well, la-di-da.
but that's because we're trying to alleviate the fact that they park on the street. And besides asking them nicely not to park there, it's legal. So I don't have a lot of footing to tell them that where they can actually park in real life.
Right.
But we have tried to alleviate that by allowing our students of the month to have front row parking at our building. So
perfect, great. So Gab, do you have anything you want to add?
This is not my board. I'm just here.
Yeah, no,
she just said that to me. I thought maybe if you wanted an opportunity to say anything, we should give it to you. It's okay if you're planning at the SU.
Tomorrow, Molly Gray is doing a virtual field trip with the 3rd and 4th graders. It's pretty exciting. They're doing some really cool preparation work for that 2-hour meeting. So I don't know. That's what's exciting at the VLA.
Yeah, neat. Cool. Okay, so let's circle back to Lynn.
Okay, I will jump to personnel. The first 2 are informational, and these were both hires at Richford Elementary School. One is Dina Foster has been hired as a paraeducator at Richford. The other is really not a hire, but more of a transfer. So Sonia Holmes, who is a paraeducator, had an early ed endorsement, will be filling in as the long-term substitute teacher for Alicia Lawyer, who is the pre-K teacher at Richford. So those are just 2 informational pieces. The next is for board action, and that is Robert Monette. He is, we would like to hire him as the JROTC instructor for the 21-22 school year, coming to us from the other side of the mountain, from the North Country Supervisory Union. Highly recommended.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve that hire?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well.
Can I vote? I put
no. Yeah, no.
Yeah, aye.
Good. Okay. So yeah, what else?
resignations. So this first is informational. Allison Silva, a paraeducator at Richford, resigned in the middle of February. And we have learned that we're losing a kindergarten teacher who is chosen, she's moving out of state. Peyton Whitelack will be leaving Richford Elementary as well. So for that one, if you can make a motion to accept Peyton's letter of resignation.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Mort,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and Polly. Yes, aye. Yeah, what else?
Retirements. So every once in a while I get to do some strange stuff with you. And earlier this year, I asked you to approve Nelson Murray's retirement as the part-time PE teacher at Enosburg High School. And Nelson has had some second thoughts, and he has decided that he would like to stay on and work a little longer. So he is asking if the board will consider allowing him to retract that letter of resignation and stay on as the part-time PE teacher at Enosburg High School.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Sarah made the motion, so I'll take a vote. Mort,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I am an aye.
Fantastic. We're happy to keep him on. Next up is a retirement notice for Andy Frappier. Andy's been teaching as the band teacher for 20 years at Enosburg. So there's two parts to this request. The first is that you accept his notice of retirement at the end of this school year, his resignation.
No.
Yeah, no. Retirement, not just resignation, retirement.
He's leaving. So it's a resignation, but I think he's maybe not going to stay in education is what it sounds like. So
Okay.
I'm using that word because of the next thing I'm going to ask you.
Okay, I'm curious. So do I have a motion to accept the retirement? Oh, I think I know where we're going with this.
Yes, you have the motion mostly because I want to hear the next part.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll take a vote. Rick,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Amy,
Aye.
Mort.
Aye.
Okay, here's the next part. So although Andy is not officially retiring, he has been here 20 years. So there are parts of the master agreement that he qualifies for if he had met the deadline. So if he had notified you on December 1st, he would have qualified for the buyback of sick day in the retirement, which is $25 a day for the 65 days he has. I believe he has 65 days accrued. And he also would have qualified for the $125 per year of service within the organization after 20 years. And he's finishing his 20 years. So the sick day buyback is after 15 and the years of service is after 20. So the ask is, would the board consider waiving that deadline for Andy?
Thoughts? That's a toughie.
Do we have any precedent of this similar situation?
Right.
In terms of this board, I don't know that I remember us doing it since I've been superintendent, but we did on the NMV side at the last meeting. They made a decision to waive it for this year, given the rationale that some people are leaving having to do with COVID was the reason that they chose to waive.
That would make sense, given the year
decision
and the uncertainty. Right.
Well, and the impact it's had on his position.
True that. So that being said, I definitely would be more apt to, so here I'm just going to explain my thinking out loud. One, somebody who's given their 20 years to this school district. Has he been 20 years in this school district, or is it? Yeah, right. Okay. So you would want to honor that. Thank you very much. Here's your retirement agreements. But then we set the precedent for not following the deadline. So that opens up a can of worms. But coming back to, given this year and the uncertainty and what people's next steps are, I think that's definitely a valid reason that might set us up for falling into necessarily a common precedent.
What's the reason for the deadline?
Reason for the deadline is so you can plan it in your budget. So we do it by December 1st so that you can build that in. So that's the rationale there. I will say on behalf of Andy, it's been a really tough year to be a music teacher. There wasn't a path forward for a lot of the work that they do until just a few weeks ago, right before the February break. So they have had to really be creative and think outside of the box. And some of the things that we've had to do as a system in order to be able to operate in these conditions have also felt hard as a music teacher. So I think that this has certainly played in, and if the pandemic has certainly played into the decision making, and if the board made this decision based on the circumstance of the pandemic, I think that you could make an argument this is not precedent setting outside of this pandemic time period.
So I'm good with it based on those caveats.
So is that a motion,
Agreed.
Rick?
Yes, I will make the motion.
Okay. So Mort,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I am an aye.
Okay. And Beth has already done Doug McDonald. So just to update, there's a couple of open positions that we're aware of and people are working on getting filled. The co-op and work-based learning coordinator position to be shared by the high schools in Cold Hollow. That's an open position. We're looking at Richford Elementary for a paraeducator and a library media teacher and a kindergarten teacher. Those are the positions that we know about right now. I have a worry about the candidate pool for this year. You know how I have felt about attracting and retaining high quality teachers. We've talked about that every year since I've been in this role. I'm more worried this year than I've ever been because of the pandemic and the shortage of people going into education. So I typically would tell the principals, let's wait until we get closer to that 30-day mark after our budgets are approved before you do any hiring. I'm not telling them that this year. So if they know of a position, I'm telling them to go ahead and hire now to get ahead of the hiring season. So people are actively looking to fill the positions, and we're doing that this year before that budget rescind period comes to an end. So I just wanted to tip the board to that. It's a purposeful decision to make sure that we're not caught short in terms of having candidates. And if we do get in a pinch in terms of budget, there is recovery money that we can use flexibly to work through that. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't have anything under student. I'm going to give you just a really quick legislative update. So there is quite a lot that's happening in Montpelier right now, and I'll just let you know that this update is about 10 days old at this point. I've been a little busy and haven't kept up with it in the last 10 days, so some of this might not be current. Crossover is approaching, so we're hoping that we won't be seeing a lot of new stuff coming through after that point in time. The middle of March is essentially when that starts to slow. I think that one of the pieces that is being considered, and this is coming out of the Senate Agricultural Committee, is a universal school meals for all students, free breakfast and free lunch for all students in Vermont. So that I know there's a debate on that. People want to do it because they value the the importance of nutrition for students. It's coming at a big price tag of, they're estimating 23 to 39 million. So they're worried about the impact on the ed fund on that one. The pupil weighting study, again, is a really complicated bill. And I think that most people are invested in wanting to make sure that they're looking at education funding through the lens of equity. The weights that have been assigned for those student counts, those equalized pupil counts, haven't changed in 20 years. So there's a pretty strong push to adopt the Tammy Colby study out of UVM, assigning new weights, more equitable weights to give systems that are educating students in high poverty areas, or lots of students who are ELL learners or students with learning disabilities. All those students cost more to educate in theory, so they want the education funding to follow those kids. The tricky part is there's only a fixed amount of money in the education system, so if we up the weighting for those students, there will be some systems that have fewer of those students who will lose some revenue as a result of that. So the revenue just gets reapportioned. There's no new money coming into this. So you can imagine that depending on which system you represent, how you feel about this weighting study is impacted by that. So I think my gut tells me what's going to happen is they're going to have to take a look at all the components of the education funding system at the same time that they look at weighting. And I think this is likely going to take a few years for them to make any meaningful change. I don't know that anyone really has the time and the capacity right now in the middle of the pandemic to really work through and figure this out. I could be wrong. I just don't think it's going to land in a, this is finished and this is the direction where it's going to go at the end of this legislative session. But we'll definitely keep our eye on that. That's a big deal, especially for the Enosburg-Richford board. That would be a markedly different amount of revenue coming your way as a result of that. And the intention is to put more revenue here, not to buy down taxes, but to create more opportunities for those students who in theory have less opportunities than other students in the state and cost more to educate. So keep watching that. The school facilities and construction bill, that there's been a moratorium on school construction aid for nearly 20 years. So there's been a lot of time where buildings throughout the state have had a lot of deferred maintenance, and we're in a crisis mode in some of those buildings at this point. And there's been a strong push for them to consider finding ways to create some construction aid opportunities. I think where this will likely land in this House Education bill is that they're going to likely fund a study to do an assessment of all the needs in all of the school buildings, and then do some sort of work around prioritization of those needs. And I think that's as far as they'll likely get on that. I think that the COVID response and recovery planning, I think has been, everybody is in that mode of wanting to help at this point. And I think that it's great that people want to help. And at the same time, sometimes people with the best intentions of wanting to help can sometimes create barriers for others doing the work. So the hope is that anything that comes out of the legislature around recovery planning and the response to COVID will be opportunity-based and not mandate-based, because we're all in a different place. And adding more mandates right now, when we really should be targeting our focus and attention on the recovery of learning loss and the social emotional learning and re-engaging our students, it's going to take us a few years, and we're going to really need to use all of our focus to do that work. So we're all holding our breath and hoping that there are no new mandates that are coming out of this legislative session that would distract us from that really important work. So we're shifting towards the recovery planning. We're still in a waiting pattern with the agency. We have established a recovery team at the SU level. The schools will be working through a needs assessment, and we'll be working through a needs assessment as an SU, and we'll be developing a recovery plan that will replace the continuous improvement plans that we typically develop this time of the year. So We still don't know exactly what is going to be in the template. There's been a delay that has gone on for a while now on the actual recovery template. So we'll have more to report to you in April. We'll be further along in the process at that point. The one good thing for us is that some of the efforts that they're pointing to in terms of they align with Act 173, which is something we've been working towards, and the importance of having a coordinated curriculum across the schools that we're working with, the focus on educational support teams, the comprehensive assessment system, and needs-based professional development. Those have all been priorities that we've been trying to lean into for the past several years. So the work that we've done around our multi-tiered systems of supports and interventions that we've talked to you about in the past, those are perfectly in line with some of the work that we're going to need to do for our recovery plan. So that's good news for us. I know you've also seen the legislative update. Were there any questions that any of you had? Any comments, things I left out that you were hoping we would talk about? Okay. So next up, I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID. I think that one of the things that's most apparent if you're watching the news or listening to the press conference is that there is a pretty intense focus on our students not being okay, and that we need to be shifting and trying to find a way to get all of our students back. First, I just want to say some of our students are really not okay. We know that this has been, the pandemic has been really hard on everyone. And at the same time, what is missing a little bit from the conversation is that some students are doing really well with the hybrid model, and some students have been doing really well with the increased flexibility in learning and just the changes that have been made. So I think that it's important for us to recognize that we have a lot of work to do to support those students who are not doing well, but at the same time, there are opportunities that have actually helped other students that have presented themselves as the result of this pandemic. So we don't want to lose sight of that as we're planning our recovery forward. So I think that everybody at this point knows that teacher vaccination has been prioritized. So that opened up yesterday. So all of our teachers have a code to be vaccinated. There aren't a lot of sites nearby. There are none in Franklin County that have opened yet. I believe in the next 24 or 48 hours, we'll have some options for mass vaccination sites in the county. We're waiting to hear more about that. There are a lot of educators who've signed up for vaccination in other parts of the state, so that's underway. I think that the governor's strategy to get staff vaccinated is a really important strategy, because what's going to happen as a result of that is it's going to stabilize our workforce, because right now we lose staff every time someone has to quarantine for a period of time, whether or not they're symptomatic or they've been exposed to someone, and then it leaves these principals trying to adjust which support person can I move into this role or that role, or which interventionist can I make a classroom teacher. And it's very hard to plan instruction when your staffing model is that fluid. So this is a really good strategy to stabilize the staffing. Good first step for increasing time in person. Right now, we have most of our K-6 students back for 4 days a week. And I think with the exception of one 6th grade class in the SU. And we're having conversations about, do we have the capacity to make some adjustments to that? Could we add some additional time to that? We're trying to figure out logistically, where do we go from here once we have a more stable staffing structure? And you all know that we've had quite a lot of virus in our area lately, in our schools and in our towns. So when that starts to stabilize as well, we're going to look at where can we push on that a little and add a little more there. We're also looking hard at our middle school structures to see if there's a way that we can, we've been thinking really creatively about this all along. There are some places where the 6 feet part of the distancing is, we just can't meet it. So we're really kind of at that place where we're looking forward to those conditions improving. And at the same time, we're looking forward to the Vermont Department of Health and the agency to recognize that the conditions have improved in order to be able to make revisions to the guidance that we've been asked to follow. So that's kind of the next step there. We do think that as the weather improves and as we can utilize the outside space differently, we might have the opportunity to be able to shift our thinking and really look hard at prioritizing middle school. So we're going to work on that plan in the next couple of weeks. And then next up, we'll have conversations about, are there ways that we could add some additional time at the high school levels? Again, we're hearing from, we've been hearing some mixed signals about guidance not changing. I did hear in the press conference today that Dr. Levine did mention that he's expecting that there might be some CDC changes to that guidance. So we'll wait and see on that. But when people say that you have to think creatively and flexibly, I would put our leaders and our teachers up against anyone. I think that they have been flexible and creative from day one, starting with this pandemic. And it's no different now. If there's a way to make it happen, they're going to work really hard to try to make it happen in our schools. So we'll keep you updated as we make progress on that. I think that the other piece is around the data that we'll be bringing to you in terms of the recovery planning. So you can expect to see more of us sharing some data in terms of those three areas of the recovery plan. So it's the academic achievement and success, the mental health and well-being, and the re-engagement, student re-engagement and truancy. So we'll be sharing that along the way. Are there any questions on any of that? Comments or questions? Okay, that is all I have for you.
Okie dokie. So that brings us to board business. Our next scheduled meeting is April 13th. And now we need to ratify the master agreement.
Yes, and I emailed this out to you, I believe it was yesterday. I can screen share if anybody needs me to do that, but really what we did was we took the same master agreement that you had for this current year and we pushed the dates out a year.
Right. So if people are in agreement with that, I would entertain a motion to ratify that.
I'll make the motion.
Great. Mark made a motion. Sarah?
Aye.
And just from some background, Sarah, if you didn't hear what Morgan said, they're keeping everything the same from last year. So there's no changes other than step increases, right? Correct? Rick?
Aye.
And Amy?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Oh, my video's going. So, or my internet.
Your audio was, so I turned off your video.
Thank you.
Yep.
So next it brings us to next we are at in-district transfer procedure.
So we have, I just want to bring you back to remind people, you had the in-district transfer. I think that Doreen sent that to you. I think she included it in the packet. You had approved this previously, and it's going to go live this year for the 2021 school year. So the intention is to send that out to families later this week so that we can be ready to go for the next school year. I'm having a little bit of a brain skip, and I think Beth knows I had this same brain skip earlier this week. Was there something else I was supposed to say about that policy? or procedure. It's a procedure, not policy.
Are you talking about students
Yeah.
at the elementary and middle school level?
Yeah. So it's K through 8.
It's K
Do
through
you
8. It's a policy. We didn't have the dates. The dates was what
Yeah.
we were waiting
So
on.
May 1st for the deadline for registration, and May 30th when I would get the letter back to families.
Okay.
So that's been updated, and it should be in what Doreen sent you. So I think that was the only other thing. So I didn't know if there are any other questions, and I just wanted to remind you because it wasn't live for you last year, and it will be live for you this year.
No questions, it looks like. Okay. And future agenda items. Is there anything that the board would like to add to the future agenda item?
Polly, one thing that you haven't talked about as a board is teacher appreciation. I know that you typically make some decisions about that. That's going to creep up on you in the first week in May.
Oh yeah, that did creep up on me.
Yeah.
So yeah, come up with some ideas. The socks were a big hit, but just be clear, the socks were definitely some work that somebody did that was not us. So there's some definitely legwork that has to be done. So that might not be the best gift, even though people did love those socks. But
I think the other side, the NMV board has decided to do it again, but they're going to try to make some revisions in how they did it. So it is a little less work than what it was last year. Limit the choices a little, I think.
okay. Do you want to make a decision next meeting? Maybe that's a future agenda. So think about some ideas of what we could do for teacher appreciation. And we can talk about it next meeting. Oh, that's it. Am I frozen? Oh, good.
Oh, the rest of us are.
I think Polly's waiting for a motion to adjourn.
See? Yes, that's what I would like. A motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion
Make
to
a
adjourn.
motion.
Perfect. Oh, now we're talkative. Okay. Everybody's jumping to make a motion. So I have a motion.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Take a vote. Mort.
Hey, Nate's got
Hold
something.
Okay.
I mean, I know Sarah, and I don't know if, but we didn't welcome Sarah, and I don't know if everybody knows Sarah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, right. To like I'm like, of course we know Sarah, but yeah, right. The rest of the people might not
Good
know
point,
Sarah.
Nate.
So
Yes.
yeah, sorry I waited so long, but I just came to. I don't know what happened, but
We all said hi at the start of the meeting, but we probably should have
Right.
started with that, Sarah. Polly, do you want to do an
That's fine.
introduction?
Yeah.
I think Polly's internet is not.
Yeah.
being-
So yeah, yep. Let's see. Rick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh God,
Muted.
you're on mute.
You're on mute.
It's all going so poorly.
It's the wheels
now.
are coming off the bus.
You're still muted.
Still
You're
muted.
still muted.
Yes, I'm pinned. I can't find my picture. I'm trying to unmute myself. Oh my God, it was chaos.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So I'm Rick Bartholomew. I'm a board member from Enosburg.
And Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, you're also muted.
Yes, Lisa
Oh.
Dorn, I'm acting principal for Rachel, who's on maternity leave at Enosburg Middle School.
Kelly, you want to go?
Kelly Dean, I'm the principal at Richford Elementary School.
Amy, although I'm sure you know Amy.
Sarah and I have known each other long enough.
I know, that's how we met. That's how we met at the river. Exactly.
Right,
That's
right.
right.
Yeah, big connection.
Mhm. Years
Um,
ago.
Yeah, Beth.
Hi, Sarah. I know Sarah really well. Welcome. We're glad to have you on the board, Sarah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And then you know Lynn.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm excited to welcome you to the board too.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And then Jen, why don't you go?
Hi, I'm Jen Hubbard, and I am the principal at Enosburg Elementary School, and welcome.
Thank you.
And Joseph?
Hi, Sarah. Joseph Donner, I'm principal, Enosburg Falls High School. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Nate?
Hi, Sarah. I've had the pleasure of teaching and being part of all of our kids' lives, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Mhm.
Morgan?
Hi, Sarah. We have a professional relationship outside of this board.
Yes, we do.
And Gab?
Hi, Sarah. I'm the principal of the Virtual Learning Academy this year.
And Mort, you know.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Mark.
And then Amanda, Amanda, you want to, are you there? She's being quiet.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
And so sometimes I'm spacing. Jane Fletcher. So we alternate meetings. So one meeting it'll be Amanda taking notes, another meeting it'll be Jane. Okay, now how about that adjournment?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Rick.
Aye.
Amy.
Aye.
Mort.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Good night, everyone.
Good night.